Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our literature review. As you can clearly see, we have chosen the topic what are the effects of bullying in schools? Unfortunately, bullying is something that we educators have seen, unfortunately, probably countless times. And it's something that's not going to go away. But I think if we all can educate ourselves a little bit more, we can hopefully do better. So Andrea, go ahead and kick it off.
So what is bullying? Bullying is the unwanted aggressive behavior among school-age children, actually from basically kindergarten to college, that involves a real or perceived power imbalance. Somebody has power over someone else. The behavior also is repeated or has potential to be repeated over time. Kids who are bullied and bullies both have serious problems that last well into their adulthood. Bullying, like I mentioned, imbalance of power, but bullying can incorporate physical strength, embarrassing information, popularity. You see a lot of it on social media now. It can change over time and it be in different situations. Also, repetition happens more than once or has the potential to happen more than once. Like I mentioned, there's threats, spreading rumors, physically, verbally, and also excluding someone from a group on purpose. So why is it important to study bullying effects on education? First, the CDC says that it has significant health issues for adolescents and adults. It affects students' mental health, which includes depression, anxiety, self-harm. And because they suffer from these, they're less likely to maintain passing grades, have a feel of belonging at school. They also have an increased risk factor for suicide. Bullying victims and perpetrators are 3 to 5 times higher to more likely commit suicide than non-victims or perpetrators, and they have decreased academic performance. And as I mentioned, in school, absenteeism goes up with kids that are bullied and bullies as well. And then top grades in schools, such as high school, seniors and juniors, report less bullying, but there happens a lot in middle schools and different levels of schools. Jennifer? Or sorry, Robin?
Let's look at the relevancy of bullying. We know that bullying occurs in every classroom and every school, not only in the United States, but across the world. And we know those effects impact every classroom. And we also know that bullying impacts not only the child at the time, but that child takes that bullying trauma into their middle school, high school, and adult years. And research has also shown that there are no significant differences between verbal and indirect bullying. Boys were almost as likely as girls to suffer from indirect bullying. And we also know that pervasive teaching and bullying may create a noxious environment. And this means that students will try to be in a situation where they're trying to avoid a situation that can cause bullying and to cause that imbalance of power. And we know that bullying not only impacts the victim and the bully, but also the educator and the families as well. Relevant topics that focus on bullying are, for example, the idea of school belonging. If students feel that they belong and are connected to a school, they're less likely to report being bullied, and bullies are less likely to bully. We also know that internalizing and externalizing behaviors are critical to study and know. So teachers need to be watching and monitoring students for those behaviors in order to know if students are being impacted by bullying. It also brings up the relevant topic of grade bands within a school. For example, middle schools can be organized 5th grade through 8th grade, 6th grade through 8th grade, even 5th grade on up. As Andrea mentioned, when we look at the top down or top dog, we know that the students that are in the lowest grade in a band report higher levels of bullying. So it may impact how schools are organized. And we also know that we need to look at how students cope with behavior. What are their symptoms of depression, their risks of suicide? And another relevant topic is that students who were bullied were more likely to bring or carry weapons into schools as compared to those who were bullied. So we need to be aware of this as well. And in light of the school shootings that we've seen in the news as of recent, we know that bullying has a direct link to classrooms and potential behaviors by bullies and by those who are bullied.
Okay, so now we're going to look at bullying in an educational context. We thought it was important to think about how this relates to us as educators. One thing that we found was that schools and classrooms have to find a way to create a sense of belonging for all the students, because it decreases the bullying and increases the chances that the bullying may not occur in the first place. So then this comes into the hands of the districts. They have to design effective screening tools to be able to determine the internal and the external behaviors so that schools can address the students' social and emotional needs. Also in the hands of the district would be the need to design effective bullying screeners to assess the levels of bullying and those associated concerns within each school building. I know I've worked at several campuses, and depending on how the administrators view bullying, how the teachers are trained, this affects the climate and how bullying is handled. So that's something that's important for districts to look at. We also learned that over half of those who were bullies in college were also considered to be bullies in high school and in elementary school. And this kind of leads into the fact that pre-service teachers and classroom teachers, we need support and we need training to be empowered to decrease bullying among the students that we serve. So what do we know about bullying? Well, we know that it is prevalent in schools across the world. It impacts each classroom. As educators, we can probably think of multiple instances where we have had to step in, where we have had to try to alleviate the situation and coach our kids and train our kids on how to behave and how to treat one another. We've learned also that it affects the range of mental health issues to decrease school performance and absenteeism. The prevalence of teasing and bullying can lead to a high dropout rate in high school, and this is associated with a 20.6 increase in dropout counts. So it's really important to target the bullying, because our ultimate goal is for our kids to graduate and to be successful. But if bullying is happening, this is more likely that they would not graduate. We also have learned that bullying others during the school age years is a strong predictor of antisocial and violent behavior in adulthood. Okay, Pat?
So what do we not know about bullying? Well, the research that we looked into was focused elementary through college students. And especially at the early age, it can be limited. It doesn't provide enough detailed information regarding bullying from the lens of a 3 to 5-year-old child, or they can't recall that information accurately based off of long-term memory. Research has not explored if bullying characteristics in pre-school do stay the same or it changes the bully ages, because the data is just not there to show what are the warning signs for those children. And then depending upon when asked, adults may also have a hard time recollecting if they were bullied or not, especially if it occurred 10 to 15 years prior to being interviewed. And that also, I think, can show the disparity of what bullying is based off your experience and definition of it. So further research would be needed there. So what are some areas to research differently? The longitudinal effects of bullying obviously is a big one. What does that look like truly from a potential pre-K all the way to adulthood, if not even kind of a collegiate post-adulthood based off of being 18-year-old in most states, might even need more. What are that mental health service accessibility, if you will, look like in the communities where these people were studied? Did you have the ability to receive any sort of treatment, or even have kind of a notion of what could be bullying from an early age, so you knew that something wasn't correctly being done to yourself, and you could be an advocate to not have it, or for one of your friends? And the last thing is specific programs for teacher professional development is targeting bullying in the classroom. So we need to give PD to the teachers, the people that are in the rooms, to make sure that they can identify when bullying could be occurring. So in conclusions here, bullying is most definitely a serious issue that impacts students emotionally, socially, and academically. It is imperative that schools continue to implement or begin implementing anti-bullying programs and educating the students about bullying, so they themselves can be advocates for their friends' health as well. schools must address the emotional needs of bullying victims. There's a lot of students that I feel like internalize a lot of these emotions and what happened to them, or maybe even feel like they deserve it. And that's not okay. So we need to make them understand that they are not in the wrong here. And on the other side, we need to get connected with home. Parents need to be trained, or even just the guardians at home need to be trained in the warning signs of what we could see at the school or what they may see at home in terms of if their child's being bullying, and that way we can get them some help. There are some challenges and limitations in reviewing the literature that we came upon. Searching for literature about bullying in schools is just such a big topic, and it brings on a lot of range of related topics in the field of education. Because it is such a prevalent issue, the resources were related to elementary all the way up through collegiate. So that's a pretty big topic for this literature review. Our findings also resulted in information about the understanding of bullying from the lens of a pre-service teacher, as well as bullying in countries other than the United States. So what does that look like in other countries? Similarities, differences, maybe that'd be a way for us to grow professionally in education, to use other countries' methodologies. And the last part here, when specifically studying someone who is labeled as a bully, the respondent has to willingly participate in that study, which creates a challenge. Not many kids are probably be willing to share how they like to pick on people. It's probably gonna be a sense of, I didn't do that, they're lying. And that's gonna take a lot of work to get through to them. And I think the same can be said about the parents at home that have bullies. It's not my fault, it's someone else's. So that'd be a further study for later. And we have our references, page 1 here, and then also page 2. And we just want to thank you all for listening, and we'd open up to any questions.